G'day and welcome to Gardening Australia. It's National Tree Day tomorrow, so what better time to meet a local group who are out and about helping repair and regenerate the bushland in their area. We've got a packed show coming up, so let's have a look at what's in store.
Roses are red, white, pink and yellow, and I'll be pruning roses with a lovely young fella.
I'll be showing you around a garden that will inspire you to create some different spaces at your place.
Cactus are back, but they can be hard to handle and even harder to pot up. But I'm going to show you a couple of little tricks.
We're looking down on an ancient forest, a place of incredible beauty, a place with trees that stand up to 70 metres tall and are often 400 or even 500 years old. I'm in the Valley of the Giants to experience a forest walk like no other. We're in the Walpole-Nornalup National Park in the southwest of WA. This is wet forest country, and to get a really special perspective, I'm heading up the winding treetop walk with Visitor Service Officer Julie Ewing from the Department of Parks and Wildlife. Wow, what an amazing place to access the forest.
It is pretty nice, pretty beautiful.
Surely is. So tell us a bit about this forest community here. What species are we seeing?
So the Valley of the Giants is basically a tingle forest. And we have red tingles, we have yellow tingles, we have carry through here. We also have she oaks, casuarinas growing through the forest. But red tingles only grow in this region. They're only found in this 6,000 hectare area of forest, not found anywhere else in the world. 65 million years ago, trees similar to the red tingle were widespread across the mainland. And
across Australia?
Across Australia. And as the climate changed and the continents drifted apart, the area of these types of trees became reduced. So this is kind of a relic forest.
So why is the range of this forest community so restricted?
Well, the red tingle need a certain amount of rainfall, and Walpole has the highest rainfall in the state, so we have to get about 1,200 mil of rain a year here. So that's perfect for these trees to grow.
So unique being this close to the canopy, isn't it?
It is. And here we have this lovely little hollow in the tree. So a lot of the hollows throughout the area are inhabited by native birds. A few years ago we had an owlet nightjar living in this tree, or just roosting in the tree, so that was pretty special. But we've been visited on many occasions by cockatoos that they check out these hollows on the tops of the trees to see if they're a good place for nesting. Yeah, see lots of bird life up the top here.
Well, it's so unique to be able to see a hollow like that so close up at eye level.
At eye level, yeah. The pylons have been designed and built out of a special type of steel, Oz-10 steel. So they actually are rusty looking, so they blend in with the forest. So basically when you look across there, the treetop walk looks like it's just gliding on air. This site was visited by people over many, many years, and we had a beautiful iconic tree here. And a lot of people used to drive in and park their car inside the tree. And because of the fragility of the tingle tree roots, in 1990 that tree fell over. So basically something had to be done to protect this site. So they put out a nationwide competition to see if somebody could design something to get everyone up off the ground and protect the site. So that's basically how the treetop walk was built, and it's all been protected. So you can see on the right.
At ground level, we get a better idea of both the fragility and the resilience of these ancient trees. So these trees are obviously very shallow rooted, and protecting the roots is critical to their survival?
Yeah, it is important. So because they've got that shallow root system, it's not so bad in the centre of the tree, but as you walk around the base of the trees, it actually compacts the root system. Their roots aren't very deep, so they're quite shallow. They need that layer of leaf litter on the top to protect them. And that's why we've got boardwalks all over the site, and basically why the treetop walk was built. But here we're standing, we can move in and stand right inside a living tree, And you can see that it's all blackened and burnt out, but it's still got that lovely growing layer on the outside that's taking all the nutrients up to the top.
Amazing. So what kind of marsupials do you find through the forest?
So through the forest here, the main large marsupial we have is a quokka.
Right, of course, mainly found on Loch Ness, but there is a
Mainly found
population
on Loch Ness, yes, so
southwest.
they are in the southwest, quite a large population. And now we're coming up to another one of my favourite spots here. Everyone loves this tree. We call her Grandma Tingle, and she's one of the older trees in the forest here. So Grandma Tingle is between 400 and 500 years old, and everyone can see some sort of face in there.
A true monarch.
Beautiful tree.
The Valley of the Giants truly is a wonder, and the treetop walk is a powerful way to share the immense value of these ancient trees.
Cactus are back. And for very good reason. They are beautiful, architectural, tough as old boots plants. They're good in almost every garden, but they can be hard to handle and even harder to pot up. But I'm going to show you a couple of little tricks. Of course, you could wear a thick pair of gloves, but I find them really hard to then do the fiddly jobs. So instead, I employ a couple of really high-tech tools. The first one is a strip of newspaper. So you can just make a little collar around the plant. Hold it tight, it's not going to damage those spines. And then you can literally slip it out of its pot and position it in the new one. I'll backfill that one in a minute. Now the other equally high-tech tool is a couple of pieces of polystyrene. Obviously you can get them out of nearly any bin you want. Now you just gently actually pierce the polystyrene, and that means on a larger cacti like this, I've got quite a bit of purchase, and just carefully position my plant. I'm actually going to have to take a little bit of soil out of the bottom there. And there it is in position. I'm making up a really simple free-draining cactus mix, 1 part sand, 1 part perlite and 1 part potting mix. So I'll just mix that up. A really thorough mix. So this one is only going to need a little bit of extra mix. Get my dibble, very high-tech tool as well, to make sure it's compressed in. I don't want to bring that level up any higher than it was originally in the pot. The smaller one, I think this'll need a bit more. Use my stick because I don't want to get any closer to this cactus than I have to. So that's about the level. I'm just going to finish it off with a little bit of gravel mulch. Well, cacti are not fussy plants. You might only have to do this every 2, 3 or 4 years, or just when you want to put them in a prettier pot. But when you do, don't forget your high-tech toolkit, some newspaper and some polystyrene.
You get the picture. Roses are beautiful, and yes, their perfume is divine. I think most of us would agree on that. But ask a group of people how to prune one, and you're likely to get bombarded with a range of opinions. So, to settle this debate, I've asked pruning prodigy 20-year-old Tate Hancock to share his expertise. Despite his tender years, Tate is an accredited rose pruner, which allows him to get stuck into the roses here at the Adelaide International Rose Garden. Because, after all, roses benefit from a good prune.
Without the right pruning, roses often don't flower well. But with the right pruning, they flower their heads off. You get far more flowers and far better quality flowers. So the first thing you should consider is what sort of rose you have. There are many sorts. There's hybrid teas, floribundas, climbers, ground covers and heritage. This one here, for example, is a floribunda, and you can tell that by the multiple branching from the base all the way up the tips. And on the tips where the flowers come, there are multiple different flowers.
Now, there are some general things that apply to all roses when it comes to pruning, aren't there?
Yeah, there is. And they are usually to take out all dead, diseased, and crossing branches and any weak ones within the centre of the bush.
So where does it apply with this one?
So in this one, if you look right down here, see this branch? Mm-hmm. See how the tops are really thin and spindly and they lie below the top growth? We need to remove that all the way down here, right at the base, because it's never going to grow. As you can see here, 2 branches have been crossing, and once they start crossing, they start to rub, and you get this damage all the way along here, this brown, dead-looking patch. So if you remove it, you can see on the back, all of that's been sliced open and is a potential spot for infection.
So simply cutting off the crossing branches eliminates that?
Yeah, yeah, and it prevents further death. That's it.
We've still got to drop the height of the plant. So how much would you look at dropping the height of this floribunda by?
So this floribunda is usually dropped in height by about 1/3. 1/3 in every direction. Okay. So not just the height, but also the width.
Now, you're not just making random cuts, are you, Tate? You're cutting at a specific point on the stem.
Exactly. Now, for floribundas, you usually cut between 3 and 5 buds above where it joins onto the stem below. So on this one, starting from the stem below, you work up. So that's 1 bud, 2, 3, 4, and there's a 5th one on the back. So anywhere between that bud and above that bud would be fine.
You don't just cut in the middle there, do you? You cut just above a node.
Yeah, just above a node.
And what happens if you leave too much space?
Well, this is a perfect example of what happens when you leave too much space. As you can see, the cut's been made here on this plane, whereas the bud was located all the way down here. And it's died back down to this level just in here. Remove that.
Now, this is a hybrid tea, a popular rose because people love the beautiful flowers and long, straight stems. How would you tackle pruning this?
Very much like a floribunda. You take out the old dead wood and any crossing branches. But in addition, you take out any old wood, so that's usually 4 years old, and you can tell that by this dark brown bark starting to form.
So you take that out right down at the base?
Right down at the base, yes. If you don't take it out, the new shoots become tangled and then they become very weak. And then they don't flower as well.
And what's the next difference between pruning hybrid teas and floribundas?
So the next difference is, instead of once everything's cleaned out working top down, you work bottom up. So on this, you see this nice shoot, and you go from the bottom and you count up 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
And then cut.
So we do that all the way around the plant?
Exactly. Done.
Now, these are beautiful.
Yeah, these are heritage roses. They are roses that were bred over 80 years ago. Some of them are almost 150 years old.
They're one of your favourites, aren't
They are one of my favourites, and they're my favourite because the shapes of the petals are just amazing and so diverse.
Now, as far as pruning goes, what's the difference with these guys?
Well, these guys, you can almost leave for 100 years and come back and they'll be the same. Sometimes you can take out dead wood and sometimes you take out crossing, but that only gets done every 3 or so years.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Rose pruning is a bit of an art, but it needn't be frightening. It's vital if you want to improve your roses, extend their flowering and their appearance. Give it a go.
This Sunday is National Tree Day. Tree Day is a fantastic opportunity to dig in and help restore and maintain the bushland in your area. I've tracked down Chris Williams at Warners Park in Sydney's north. He's part of Willoughby Council's bushland regeneration team and works with local groups.
So this is our community nursery in Willoughby. Now we're in the process of using it to help restore some of the bushland in the area.
Why is it important to plant local native species compared to just any native plants you can get?
We're trying to assist the local vegetation communities to re-establish themselves, so that we need to gather those seeds from our local area and then propagate them on so that those local plants that are suited to that landform and that climate can get established. It's all about having and reinforcing that local community. So that provenance is that local region that you're in.
So what are some of the local species that we're going to be planting today?
Okay, so we're going to be planting this turpentine here. So this is a large tree in the local area. It'll end up developing a rough bark. Years ago, they were harvested for a good timber and used as wharf piers for a lot of Sydney Harbour and around the world. We've also got the Christmas bush through here, you know, which most people along the East Coast know it with that crimson colouring.
And it actually is a signal of Christmas.
It is.
That's when it's in flower and you only need to look around the bush and see it. It's like a beacon.
We've got this poison peach tremor that's in there as a coloniser, so it enables us to establish a niche for these other plants to continue to grow.
And thrive underneath it and around it.
And it's a quick grower, so we need that. And we've got this egg and bacon, Pultonea lineaphylla. So it's got that classic pea-shaped flower that comes out, and that's a great one for all the insects, beetles and butterflies. And then we've got wombat berry. That'll climb over. You'll find that down there we've got a lot of branches that have fallen over. So this will climb over and create these little shelters for the animals and birds to hide in.
Yeah, literally little hotels.
Yeah. And, you know, we'll have bugs that'll hop in there and little birds will go in. The whipbird will go in and chase after a bug. And then if people then on the day find these plants to their liking and they want to use them in their backyards, then that's even better, because people will then have those animals moving across into their backyards.
Can we get started? What are we taking?
Well, you take the terps.
Yep.
I'll take this tray, okay?
Yep. Why have you chosen this site here, Chris?
We've chosen this site here because it's right on the edge of a bowling rink, and this area was previously a dairy farm, okay? So there's been a lot of past disturbances, and now we're trying to re-establish that mix that connects to the bushland reserve below. Okay, here we go. The turpentine.
Happy with that? What do you reckon, Nat?
I think that's good. Oh, yeah.
Back, Phil.
We used to come and we'll be flowering when we come down here for our Christmas parties every year.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
National Tree Day is a great time to meet other people in your community and get to know native plants local to your area. To find a Tree Day event near you, jump on our website and follow the links.
Many people know that both the leaves and the flowers of nasturtium are edible. But if you let the nasturtium flower set seed, then what you'll get is this lovely little pod. If you wash this in cold water and let it sit in brine for a couple of days and then soak it in vinegar, you'll end up with a tasty little treat referred to as a poor man's caper.
Designing great gardens is about creating spaces. Spaces that are functional, beautiful, and most of all, useful. The first thing you need to decide is, what do you want from your garden? What roles does it need to play? Perhaps it's about entertaining or spaces for the kids to play. Maybe you want an Australian garden to attract wildlife, or a bee-friendly garden. Maybe you want a productive garden filled with fruit trees and a veggie patch. And then you need to decide where to put all these things. The owners of this place wanted one with the lot. They wanted all those things, and they got it. And full confession here, I was part of the design team that made that happen, so I know this garden really well. Now, while you may not have this much space to play with, chances are you might want to create some of these areas for yourself, or might face one or more of the challenges that this garden presented. Now, here's a situation that nearly everybody has to contend with: what to do with the cars. How do you create a driveway that's practically wide enough, but that doesn't completely visually dominate the garden design? Well, here, the solution was to overlay the herringbone brick of the drive with the Cochrane-Ng stone that had been used for the pedestrian path. And then as you move through the space, that Cochrane-Ng stone path tapers down, sort of allowing the lawn to link together really visually, and then it widens as you reach the front door, creating a natural spot for mingling. So the net result should be that the space feels far more about people than it does about cars. The narrow spaces down the sides of houses is an all too common challenge. And because of the narrow width and the proximity to the neighbours, the temptation is to often just block it out, maybe with a really tall fence or a wall or a hedge of screening. But that could actually make the area seem a little darker and more oppressive. So here, the birches have been selected because they're sort of more open and ethereal. And it's forming more of a buffer as opposed to a dense screen, but it certainly does give that sense of privacy to the space. And the light quality that is created by looking through these beautiful sort of lacy leaves is really beautiful as it's delivered through to the home. Another little tip for planting in very narrow spaces is to try and have 2 layers of foliage. An underplanting of arthropodium is kind of like a foil for the birches to rise out of. Just having those 2 layers of planting can make the area feel more generous. Creating useful spaces on sloping sites usually means terracing. And here, you could have had one large terraced area, retained it, and put a flight of stairs leading down to the rest of the space. But that would have disconnected the house from the garden. So instead, a broad series of these wide lawn steps transitions the levels up closer to the house, which should bring the sense of garden up more to the home, but of course also drag people out of the home and down into the garden. What could easily have been left as a big open lawn expanse has actually been completely changed by tapering the lawn right down, putting this arbour element over the top as a bit of a divider, and it just creates this natural division between the productive part of the garden and the sort of more ornamental part of the garden. When thinking about laying out the spaces and the things that you want to achieve in your garden, it's important to understand aspect. So here, in one of the most sunniest and protected spots, of course the vegetable garden has been located. If you grow your veggies in full sun, they will do better, be more productive, and you'll have less trouble with pests and diseases. And another thing too, if you are on a really limited space, this little garden here is an orchard, a proper miniature orchard, but the plants themselves have been grafted onto dwarfing rootstocks. So it just means that you've got quite a lot of variety of fruit in a really limited space. This is a garden that's very much designed around growing children who needed space to free play. When designing spaces for kids, it's so important to remember that they're smaller than us. And so sometimes scaling down plantings is a really evocative way to make the areas feel more kid proportioned. And it really leads to a magical style of play. It really doesn't matter what space you're working in, big or small. By using some simple design ideas and having the conviction to follow them through, you can create spaces that people want to be in. And after all, gardens are for living in.
Well, that's the end of the show for another week. Don't forget, it's National Tree Day tomorrow. So jump on our website and follow the links to find a tree planting site near you. In the meantime, get out and enjoy your garden, and I'll see you next week.
I've come to visit a beautiful property at Wandillagong, about 4 hours' drive northeast of Melbourne. It's chock full of European trees, mostly hazel and chestnut, and it's a pretty good place to be.
Stay tuned, because I'll be sharing with you some of the productive and delicious perennial crops I'm growing in Brisbane right now.
It's that time of the year when the cold weather starts a-knocking. It's time to get the pruning shears a-rocking.